After 3 months, the iPhone 17 Pro Max feels like one of Apple's most noticeable upgrades in recent years, until the trade-offs started to show up in areas I wasn't expecting. What's up, friends? I'm Brian MacDuff, aka BMac, and welcome to another video. So today, after 3 months of daily use, we're taking a deeper look at the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and the way it moves things forward isn't always what you'd expect. Initially, this looked like a bigger update than we've seen in a while, especially around the design and the cameras, but that impression for me might have actually changed a little bit. First things first, I do need to give a quick thanks and shout out to Apple for loaning out an iPhone 17 Pro Max for testing, so Apple, thank you. But with that having been said, let's get right into the design of the iPhone 17 Pro series, because this new build felt like a fresh upgrade on day one, but since then it's raised the biggest question: what did Apple have to give up to get there? Right away, the biggest design change this year is that for the first time ever, Apple's gone with a fully aluminum unibody. And what this means is that a single piece of aluminum is acting as the phone's skeleton, if you will, with the internal components being built around it. According to Apple, the reason for this change comes down to thermal management, and Apple claims that this new design should help improve heat dissipation compared to the iPhone 16 Pro series, at least in theory. But the unibody is only part of the design here, because you do also have a ceramic shield 2 now on the front, stronger glass with improved scratch resistance and anti-reflectivity, with ceramic shield 1 glass on the back. The result is a matte anodized aluminum exterior with a matte glass back, creating a subtle two-tone effect and look that we really haven't ever seen on an iPhone before. In addition to that, the raised camera housing now expands the entire width of the back, with the raised housing actually serving as part of the antenna system, which I think is genuinely clever. And then you do also have the return of the physical buttons throughout. Here in the US, the iPhone 17 Pro series is eSIM only, so there is no physical SIM card slot, but you do still have your stereo speakers on the top and the bottom, plus a USB-C, USB 3 port. We do have the return of an IP68 water and dust resistance rating, and to cap all that off, the iPhone 17 Pro weighs in at just over 200 grams, while the 17 Pro Max comes in at 233 grams. Color options are kind of the talk of the iPhone this year. They're a little bit more adventurous, with a new cosmic orange color, a silver, and a deep blue color spread. And I'll be honest here, I am rather shocked that for the first time ever, we do not have any kind of black or space gray color variant option available for the iPhone Pro series, which is mind-blowing, to say the least. But in practical use, this iPhone 17 Pro design did raise a question that I didn't expect going into it. I understand the argument for Apple switching to an aluminum unibody. Thermal management is more important than ever when you have as much power tightly packed into these devices like you do with the iPhone 17 Pro series. But aluminum by nature isn't as strong or as dense as stainless steel or titanium, which means the exterior of this device feels noticeably less dense. And over time, that did start to show. I will say that I seemingly have more signs of wear and tear and scuffs and scratches on this device than I've probably ever had on an iPhone this early in use. And that just doesn't really feel particularly Apple-like. And it definitely doesn't feel very Pro-focused. So now let's talk about the iPhone 17 Pro series display, which is interesting this year, not because it's flashy, but because it shows exactly where Apple chose refinement over risk. On paper, the iPhone 17 Pro series display isn't all that different from its predecessor. The 17 Pro and the Pro Max still offer the same 10-bit LTPO OLED, 1:120Hz HDR10+, and Dolby Vision always-on displays. Dolby Vision support, by the way, I always love to see here. In a 6.3-inch display size for the Pro, or 6.9-inch display size for the Pro Max model, complete of course with Face ID, the dynamic island, and a 460 ppi pixel density rating. But there is a slight upgrade here in peak nits performance when you're outside, and you do also get that new anti-reflective coating, which I actually didn't fully notice until I directly compared the 17 Pro Max to the 16 Pro Max side by side, but I'm actually a fan of it despite its subtlety. So in daily use, nothing with the display stood out as a problem, which is great, but also why the display is not the story this year. The 17 Pro series displays are bright, they're easy to live with day to day, and I never found myself wishing they got brighter. Nothing about the iPhone 17 Pro series display performance became a distraction or a frustration. There is actually a new feature across the entire iPhone 17 lineup called Display Pulse Smoothing, which is designed to help users sensitive to OLED flicker by altering pulse width modulation, or PWM. I immediately turned this on. I'm not usually one prone to headaches or eye strain when using these displays, but it is a feature that could only help me, not hurt me. So I love to see that Apple added it here, especially for those of you who are sensitive users. And we do once again have even thinner bezels around the display, which is a nice upgrade, but not something that changes how you use the phone after you're used to it. But with that out of the way, now let's get to the cameras of this device, because the obvious upgrades aren't the ones that changed how I actually use this device on a daily basis. On the iPhone 17 Pro series, even though the rear camera housing spans nearly the entire width of the device now, there are still only 3 rear-facing cameras. You are getting a 48 megapixel f1.8 wide-angle lens with sensor shift OIS, an upgraded 48 megapixel f2.8 tele lens with a 3D sensor shift OIS and a 4x optical zoom, and a 48 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide lens. And you do have capabilities of recording in up to 4K 120 frames per second, even with Dolby Vision now, by the way, or slow motion in 1080p, 240 frames per second, plus Apple Log 2 recording, which is an even better version of the original Apple Log color profile. From my time shooting with the iPhone 17 Pro series, the rear-facing cameras felt pretty dependable and pretty familiar, which made it clear that the bigger camera story this year actually wasn't on the back, and instead was on the front. Because no matter what the lighting situation was or what lens I was using, I almost always got a usable result with the rear-facing cameras. So that selfie camera here really is the star of the show. And this is one of those changes that sounds great on paper, but feels very different once you actually start shooting with it. And to understand why, you need to understand how Apple changed the way the selfie camera works across the entire iPhone 17 series line. The selfie camera now is an 18 megapixel f1.9 center stage camera backed by a new square-shaped sensor that's present on all devices within the iPhone 17 series. More specifically, within the native iPhone camera app, you can now shoot in either 3x4 or 4x3 selfie photo ratios and either 16:9 or 9:16 video without ever having to rotate your device. With, if you wanted to, the ability to utilize that additional resolution for taking up to 18 megapixel RAW photos. But for video, this is actually where the workflow shift actually shows up, because video, instead of photo, is actually a little bit trickier in the way it's utilizing this square sensor. Simply put, you do not get the same larger field of view when shooting video like you get with photo. You do get open gate video recording supported in third-party apps, which lets you shoot video in 3840 by 3840 resolution, meaning you can get 4K portrait and 4K landscape video crops from the same original clip without losing any resolution. That does mean I think you should probably just shoot everything in open gate. But now let's get to the iPhone 17 Pro performance, because the A19 Pro chip and the vapor chamber sound like the kind of upgrade you'd notice immediately, but in real life, it's a little more complicated than that. The iPhone 17 Pro series does come with that upgraded A19 Pro chipset and an additional 4 gigs of RAM this year for a total of 12. And that's gonna be across all storage configuration options, 256 gigs, 512 gigs, 1 terabyte, or a new storage configuration option exclusive to the 17 Pro Max model, 2 terabytes, which definitely comes in handy if you shoot a lot of ProRes video, like I do. We're also getting Bluetooth 6.0, but still only with the SBC and AAC audio codec supported, which is still such a bummer for me. At any given time, I'm usually using multiple pairs of headphones and earbuds that support LDAC, and I'm just shocked that we still don't have it supported in an iPhone, let alone in the Pro iPhone. But there is a major structural change this year that directly impacts performance, and that is the vapor chamber inside of the iPhone 17 Pro series. And this is where that aluminum unibody decision actually starts to matter. In conjunction with the aluminum unibody, Apple actually says that the vapor chamber enables dramatically better heat dissipation. Question is whether or not you actually feel that over time. Between the A19 Pro chip and the improved thermals, benchmarks suggest a noticeable performance bump. And honestly, it's getting harder and harder now to actually gauge real-world performance without benchmarks, because for me, whether I'm gaming, photo editing, or even video editing, The iPhone performance has been so solid for me for the last several years. So in daily use, performance rarely felt like the thing holding the iPhone 17 Pro series back. But a big question I did have was whether or not that switch to an aluminum unibody, when combined with a vapor chamber, could really provide as much improved sustained performance as it intended to. And while sustained performance did improve based on the benchmark tests I ran, I don't know that it completely offset the trade-offs that were introduced elsewhere. But with brighter displays, better efficiency, and improved performance, the real question then becomes whether battery anxiety actually exists on the iPhone 17 Pro series. The iPhone 17 Pro Max eSIM only model packs a 5,088 mAh battery, while the regular 17 Pro model comes in at a 4,252 mAh size battery. So on paper, both models do see a meaningful capacity increase over last year, but numbers aside, what mattered was how it actually behaved day to day. And in my real world use, battery anxiety mostly stayed out of the picture. I can't remember a single time where this thing died on me halfway through the day, coming from a full charge. But I guess it also did depend on how I use the device throughout the day. Charging is fast enough that short top-ups actually make a difference, both wired and wirelessly. Apple says you could actually charge up the iPhone 17 Pro series from 0 to 50% in only 20 minutes wired now, or only around 30 minutes wirelessly. And in practice, that does make top-ups genuinely useful day to day. And then you still do also get reverse wire charging on the iPhone 17 Pro series, which some people don't even realize, but that does come in handy if you're ever in a pinch and you need to top up charging accessories like earbuds, for example. But after 3 months of use, is the iPhone 17 Pro Max actually one of Apple's most fun and noticeable upgrades in years? Or do the design and performance changes introduce trade-offs that only become clear after you actually live with it? The answer is actually yes to both. The iPhone 17 Pro series does feel like one of the more enjoyable iPhones that Apple's released in recent years. It looks new, it runs more powerfully and efficiently and cooler, and the camera system adds real flexibility to how you use it day to day, but all those gains do come with subtle compromises. The aluminum first design doesn't feel as dense or as strong or as confidence inspiring over time. You do have more flexibility with that selfie center stage camera, but for video, it's not fully utilized. And the performance improvements are more about consistency than anything you might immediately feel. If you care about comfort, efficiency, and modern camera workflows, the iPhone 17 Pro Max absolutely delivers. But if you expect this Pro device to feel completely uncompromising in every direction, there are still trade-offs that only become clear once you use this for several months and the honeymoon period fades a little bit. Whether or not those upgrades offset the compromises that are here will ultimately be up to you. For me, I think they do. As always, for the latest deals, prices, promos, and information for the iPhone 17 Pro and the iPhone 17 Pro Max, you could of course always head to my affiliate link, bmac.link/iPhone 17 Pro or bmac.link/iPhone 17 Pro Max, or of course, as always, there will be clickable links in the video description box and in the comment section below, so check those out. But with that having been said, it is time to go shoot some B-roll for this baby. I wish I could shoot my B-roll for this baby on this baby. Doesn't quite work like that, but I will see you guys in my next video.